are. I wonder what ethnicity they are.
Scandinavian.
Scandinavian?
Oh, yeah, Scandinavian. Norway, Finland, that whole
Anglo-Saxon.
Denmark, Greenland, yeah. Iceland, yeah.
Are. I wonder what ethnicity they are.
Scandinavian.
Scandinavian?
Oh, here we go.
All right, so Shabbat Shalom, everyone. We're live. We're on the YouTube live here. We are the Awakened by Yahuwah Assembly in Yahuwah Almighty and Yahusha Messiah. Today, we are going to be doing our Book of Yahusha, Book of Joshua study. I believe we're doing chapters 15 to 17 today, so I'm going to be using my Tom Horns LXX, which is basically, a revised Brenton's. That's what it is. So I'll be using that. And so we're going to be going first into chapter 15. So let me just get there. Try to put it on the shared screen as well. Let me see here. Okay. So let me just go to here. Okay. All right. Page 164. Okay. Okay. All right. So here's chapter 15 of the Book of Yahusha. All right. And it says, okay. And the borders of the tribe of Yehuda, according to their families, were from the borders of Idumea, from the wilderness of Sin, as far as Kadesh southward. And their borders were from the south as far as the part of the Salt Sea, from the high country that extends southward. Okay, let's see here. I see a little. Okay, Greek means neck, Hebrew tongue. Okay, that's interesting. And they proceed before the ascent of Akrabin and go out round Sana and go up from the south to Kadesh Barnea, go out to Asaron and proceed out to Sarada and go out by the way that is West Kadesh. And they go out to Salmona and the issue at the Valley of Egypt, and the termination or end of its boundaries shall be at the sea. These are the boundaries southward. And these are the boundaries eastward. All the Salt Sea as far as Jordan and their borders from the north, and from the border of the sea, and from the part of Jordan. Okay, so now we're at verse 6, I believe, here. The borders go up to Beth-Glaam, and they go along from the north to Betharabah, and the borders go on up to the stone of Bayon, the son of Reuben. And the borders continue on to the fourth part of the valley of Achor and go down to Galgal, which is before the approach of Adamin, which is southward in the valley, and terminate at the water of Fountain of the Sun. And there going forth shall be the Fountain of Rugal. It's kind of an interesting name there. Fountain of the Sun. That's interesting. Huh. Okay, so there seems to be a little bit difference here in the Greek. A little bit different of spelling, I guess. Okay. And the borders go up to Valley of Anan, behind Yabus, southward. This is Jerusalem. And the borders terminate at the top of the mountain, which is before the Valley of Anam, toward the sea, which is by the sea side of the land of Raphaim northward. So that's probably a verse you're going to want to highlight there. It's talking about the Valley of the Giants. So that's kind of interesting. You have the behind Yebus, the Jebusites. Interesting. So it's talking about the top of a mountain, which is in the Valley of Enon. Interesting. The border from the top of the mountain terminates at the fountain of the water of Naphtho, or Naphtho, and terminates at Mount Ephron, and the border will lead to Baal. This is the city of Yarim. Interesting that Mount Ephron, aka Ephron the Hittite, is at the border that leads to a place called Baal. So that's kind of interesting. Verses 8 and 9, I would definitely highlight. There's definitely a little bit more to that than meets the eye. So I would really like to look into that. If there's any significance about Mount Ephron. Chapter 15, 8 to 9, you have Mount Ephron referenced, a territory named after Baal, and territory of the Jebusites as well. And what was that? The valley of the Rephanes. Okay. Interesting. Anyway, moving on. And the border will go. Oh, go ahead, bro.
Sorry, the Rephaim seems to be a mistranslation, because I see the other translations say Rephaim. Possibly they're siding with the Aramaic. I know the Aramaic of Rephaim would be Rephaim, because the N is usually used in place.
Yeah, I've seen the Greeks sometimes screw up with that. They'll have it singular rather than plural. They probably either the translator screwed up, the English translator screwed up, or something happened there. Because I noticed in the Greek, Rephaim is never pronounced in the Greek as plural, so maybe they didn't have a plural suffix for that letter, or for that word, I guess. That's the only thing I can think of. I know that sometimes the Aramaic and the Greek is a lot closer to one another than the Hebrew language, for whatever reason. But yeah, that's a good catch there. Yeah, so what Brother Yahusha is talking about is right here, verse 8. There's an N instead of an M. Yeah, so that could be a translator mistake as well. So I don't want to take away from that either. It could be a possibility. That was a great catch though. And the border will go round from Baal to the sea, and will go on the Mount of Asar. I wonder if that's supposed to be Asher. Behind the city of Yarim northwards. This is Halsan, and it will come down to the city of the sun, and will go down onto the south. City of the sun. What does yours say, Mom? Does yours say on?
It says
I wonder if it's on or Heliopolis or something like that.
I'm sorry, which verse is it?
10.
10. Okay. Then it curved westward from Baal to Mount Seir, ran along the northern slope of Mount Yerim, that is Kesalon, continued down to Beth Shemesh, and crossed to Timnah.
So the Masoretic would be identifying the city of the sun, I guess, as Beth Shemesh, or what was the other one before
Mount
Beth
Yerim.
Mount Yerim. Interesting. And the border terminates behind Akaran. Northward, the borders will terminate at Sukkot, and the borders will go on to the south and will terminate at Lebna. And the issue of the borders will be at the sea, and their borders toward the sea, the great sea, shall be the boundary. These, the borders of the children of Yehuda, round about according to their families. And Caleb, son of Yefuneh, gave a portion in the midst, in the children of Yehuda, by the command of Alua. And Yahusha gave him the city of Arbach, the metropolis of Anak. This is Hebron. Interesting. So the former territory of the Anakim was given to Caleb. That's interesting. And Caleb, the son of Yefuneh, destroyed there 3 sons of Anak, Susi, Tulami, and Akima. And Caleb went up there to the inhabitants of Dabir. The name of Dabir before was City of Letters. That would be in the Hebrew, Kiryath Sefer, like, the Sefer. Okay, so I guess that's what letters means, Sefer. Okay. And Caleb said, whosoever shall take and destroy the city of letters and master it, to him will I give to my daughter Ashka to wife. That's interesting. And Gethoniel, the son of Kenez, the brother of Caleb, took it, and he gave him Ashka, his daughter, to wife. So that's kind of interesting. You still have somewhat intermarriage going on then, if you think about it. Okay, you got the son of Kenez, who is the brother of Caleb. So Gethoniel is his what, nephew?
Yeah.
So his nephew married his daughter.
Right.
So just saying, so there seems to be some
Cousins.
Yeah, you still have cousins marrying one another after Mount Sinai. That's kind of interesting. I guess because it's like a second or third type of cousin is allowed, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay, Ashka, his daughter to wife. And it came to pass as she went out that she counseled him, saying, I will ask of my father a field. And she cried from off her donkey, and Caleb said to her, what is it? Or it could also be translated as what have you to say, or what do you need?
Yeah. What can I do for you is a little nicer.
Yeah.
A little nicer.
And she said to him, give me a baraka, for you have set me in the land of Negeb. Give me Bathanis. And he gave her this is a tough one here. Gunathla to the upper, and Gunathla the lower, whatever that is. Okay, the inheritance of the tribe of the children of Yehuda, and their cities were cities belonging to the tribe of the children of Yehuda on the borders of Edom by the wilderness, and Besalal and Ara and Asur and Ekam, Ragma, Arual, and Kadesh, and Asur, Onain, and Mainam, and Baal Mainan, and their villages, and the cities of Asaron. This is Asur, and Sen, and Salma, and Malada, and Siri, and Bethalath, Kola, Bears. Man, this is tough, man. All right. Beer, Sabi or Shabi, and their villages and their hamlets, Bala, Bakok, and Asum, and Al-Budad, and Bethel, and Hermah, and Sakelak, and Makarim, and Sethanak, and Labus, and Saleh, and Aramuth, 29 cities and their villages. And in the plain country, Ashtaul, Ra'ah, and Asa, and Ramen, and Tano, and Ilutoth, and Ma'ini, Yarmuf, Udulam, Membra, Sa'uko, or Uku, and Yazeka, and Sakarim, Gadara and its villages, 14 cities and their villages, Sena and Adasan and Magadalgad, and Dalad and Maspa and Yakariel, and Besadaf and Eded Ale, and Chabra, Makesh, and Ma'akus, and Gedur, Bagadiel, and Noman, and Makedan, and 16 cities and their villages, Lebna, and Ethak, and Anuk, and Yana and Nasib. All right, Kilam and Aki Ezi Kazib and Bethis Sa'ar or Sar. And Elam, 10 cities and their villages. Akaran and her villages and their hamlets. From Akaran, Gemna, and all their cities that are near Ashdod and their villages. And so you have Asidov and her villages and her hamlets, Gaza and its villages and its hamlets, as far as the river of Egypt. And the great sea is the boundary. And the hill country, Samir and Yether and Sukkah and Rena and the city of letters, this Dabir and Anun and Es and Man and Asam and Gosam and Chalu, Kana, Gelom, 11 cities and their villages, Erem, Renna or Remna, Suma, and Yeman, and Bethaku, and Fakua, and Euma, and the city Arbuk. This is Hebron, Soraith, 9 cities and their villages. Maor, Carmel, and Uzib, and Etan. Verse 56, and Yariel, and Arikam, and Zakanaim, and Gaba, and Tamnatha, 9 cities and their villages. Elua, Bethsur, and Gedon, and Magaroth, and Bethanam, Tekom, 6 cities and their villages. Tekoa and Ephrathah, this is Bethlehem.
Mhm.
And Fagor, and Etan, and Kulan, and Tatam, and Tobes, and Karem, and Galem, and Thether, and Monaco, 11 cities and their villages. Does yours say Ephrathah? That is Bethlehem?
No, I don't see Ephrata in mine.
Interesting. I'm going to write that down there. I notice sometimes the Masoretic leaves that out. I wonder if that's on purpose. Because we know that that's where the Messiah is supposed to come from. So I wonder if they left that out on purpose. So Yahusha 15, verse 59, the LXX includes Ephrathah, that is Bethlehem.
Mhm.
That is Bethlehem, which you can find that prophecy in Micah 5, verse 2. Okay. Kiriath Baal, the city of Yarim and Sutheba, 2 cities and their villages. And Badar Geis and Tara Baam and Anan and Ikukiuza and Naf Lazon, the cities of Sidon and Ankedes, 7 cities and their villages. And the Jebusite lived in Jerusalem. And the children of Yehuda could not destroy them. And the Jebusites lived in Jerusalem to this day. Now, I would believe that to this day is not talking about 2023, obviously.
Right.
To this day would be, in the time of Yahusha writing this. So you're talking about possibly they were still there throughout Yahusha's life period until he died. They would have been still there. Possibly around the time of Judges after him, they would still be there as well. But I don't know how far after that they would still be there. Like, I doubt they're there today. I seriously doubt that's the case. So it's very hard to track down certain of these tribes like the Jebusites because some of them did intermarry with Israel, and it gets kind of convoluted genetically with that, whether the Jebusites would still be around today or not.
It's funny, some of these are still the same though, like like Gaza and Ashkelon. That's
Yeah.
known as the Gaza Strip,
Mm-hmm.
which is basically south of like Tyre and Sidon.
Yeah.
They're the northern part of the coast, where the Gaza Strip is down south.
So yeah, definitely interesting. So let's see if anyone has anything they want to add. If not, we could just have you, Mom, read chapter 16.
Okay. Mhm.
And I think Sister Milka just joined us. So
Oh,
we're going to
great.
be going to chapter 16 now. Okay.
Mhm.
Shabbat Shalom, Sister Milka.
Shabbat
Okay.
Shalom, Mishpaka.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Okay. 16.
Yep. 16.
The allotment for Yosef began at the Jordan of Jericho, east of the waters of Jericho, and went up from there through the desert into the hill country of Bethel. It went on from Bethel, that is Luz, crossed over to the territory of the Archites in Atarat, descended westward to the territory of the Yachletites as far as the region of lower Beth Horon and onto Gazer, ending at the sea. So Manasseh and Ephraim, the descendants of Joseph, received their inheritance. This was the territory of Ephraim, clan by clan. The boundary of their inheritance went from Atarat, Adar, in the east to upper Beth Horon and continued to the sea. From Mikmahat on the north, it curved eastward to Ta'anat, Shiloh, passing by it to Yanoah on the east. Then it went down from Yanoah to Atarot and Naarah, touched Jericho, and came out from the Jordan. From Tapua, the border went west to the Kana ravine and ended at the sea. This was the inheritance of the tribe of the Ephraimites, clan by clan. It also included all the towns and their villages that were set aside for the Ephraimites within the inheritance of the Manassites. They did not dislodge the Canaanites living in Gazer. To this day, the Canaanites live among the people of Ephraim, but are required to do forced labor. Yeah, we're seeing the whole setup here of what we see in the book of Judges, which becomes the big problem, is that they're not hoisting them out of these areas like Yahuwah told them to do. They're letting them stay, and they basically are wimping out. They're letting them stay and still upon you. And honestly, just because I have been recently reading Judges in my walkthrough, you see how this became very problematic. And this whole thing is setting up for a kind of disaster as you go into the next book.
Now, this is another reason I really recommend people that haven't seen our study on this book yet. I'll leave a link. It's called Differences in the Book of Joshua. This is another difference here. Key part of the end of the chapter left out here. It's a whole paragraph in, I believe it's verse 10 here. It says, it continues on to say, and the Canaanite dwelled in Ephraim until this day, until Pharaoh, king of Egypt, went up and took it and burned it with fire, and the Canaanites and Perizzites and dwellers in Gaza they destroyed. And Pharaoh gave them for a dowry to his daughter. So whoever was the Pharaoh around the time of Yahusha, son of Nun, was Yahuwah used him to destroy the Canaanites and the Perizzites. So that's what it's saying.
Yeah.
Hey, what verse was it, Sharon, that you read that said they had put them to forced labor? What verse was that?
Okay, that was verse 10. It says, they did not dislodge the Canaanites living in Gazer. To this day, the Canaanites live among the people of Ephraim, but are required to do forced labor.
Okay.
Yeah, similar. Oh, go ahead, brother. Sorry.
No, I was just looking for the verse, but thank you. I see it.
Sure.
Yeah, I was just going to piggyback off that. Kind of similar, right, to what Solomon does with them.
Yeah.
He makes them have forced labor in his time when you still had some of them left
Mhm.
over. It says that he made them have forced labor. It talks about how he wouldn't do that to his fellow Israelites, but he did it to those that were not of the
Mhm.
sons of Israel. And it names like certain tribes. I think it's in Second Chronicles, I believe. Where in his time he put some of the Canaanite tribes to forced labor. So
It's funny, some of the very things that was Yahuwah's will, the world looks at it like, oh, how mean, how terrible to,
yeah,
kill them all and whatnot. But you see his purpose, you see why, because it really became the real problem for them is that they were influenced by all these tribes and and actually began marrying them and whatnot and being together. And this is exactly what Father was trying to avoid because he knew that this would be the cause of trouble. And as Israel goes on and on and on, and we get into the times of Solomon, that obviously became a very big issue. Why Yahuwah did not want Solomon, mixing with them, and that became his real demise.
yeah.
It seems I wonder if the Mazarites are making, aside from that whole part that's missing, it seems that the uh in the Septuagint the forced labor is not there. So I wonder, but it does say that they were still living in the land. So I'm wondering if the Mazarites were watering it down to say that, like, yeah, we didn't drive them out, but we beat them
Yeah.
into subjection,
Yeah.
rather than they just didn't do anything. They just let them, stay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they figured adding that to the text would rationalize what they did.
Yeah. Yeah.
There are other places though in both texts where it talks about they put them to forced labor, but I think in that chapter they're kind of like you said, kind of adding something there that doesn't need to be added to try to provide a different narrative. Just like in the previous chapter, I don't know if Sister Milka was on. I don't think she was on yet, but in the previous chapter in verse 59, they take out Ephrathah, that is Bethlehem,
Right.
possibly to take away any hint of that being a significant place. We do know that Micah 5:2 says the Messiah would come from Ephrathah, Bethlehem. And you'll see certain places in the Torah even where it talks about Rachel, she gave birth in Ephrathah. Stuff like that. That's very messianic, where the Masoretic takes it out. So, yeah, they definitely were trying to change narratives. They definitely were trying to alter things and change narratives because, especially after Yahusha fulfilling that, a big part of that was he was born in Bethlehem in Ephrathah. So they would definitely want to take that out of there. So funny enough, they didn't take it out in Micah 5:2, which I find ironic. They take it out of every other spot practically. But yeah, there's definitely a agenda there. I wonder why they wouldn't want to have the thing about Pharaoh destroying the Canaanites and the Perizzites. I wonder what that is about. Maybe they're jealous because Yahuwah used a Gentile, a Hamite, to destroy these giants that they were supposed to destroy. Possibly why they took it out in verse 10 there in chapter 16. I'm not too sure, but yeah, there's definitely some differences we're going to see here as we continue going forward in the book of Yahusha here. So we did chapter 15 and 16, mainly talking about the territories, right? That they're the inheritances that they're being given. 15 especially. 15 had a lot of territories that we definitely could go back to, and I definitely want to go back to and reread. There were certain ones that stood out to me, but other ones I would like to look into and see what the importance of some of these territories are. I know Sukkot is, I think, originally where Jacob went to, if I'm not mistaken.
I think so.
So there's definitely importance to that spiritually and messianically. Yeah. It's kind of interesting that one place the LXX paraphrased as the city of the sun. It's kind of interesting. So it kind of shows you that there's certain places that these giants were worshiping Baal and worshiping the sun god and all that. So pretty interesting. Brother Yahusha, is that a new or old hand? I can't really tell.
Old hand.
Oh, okay, no problem. Let's see here, so the next chapter is going to deal with territory of Manasseh. It looks like. Yeah.
I accidentally put a thumbs up when I tried to put my hand down. I don't know how to take that thumbs up off.
It's already off. I didn't even have to do anything. I guess it just momentarily was up. That's all right. Okay. I never knew this. Just reading ahead here. Okay, this is gonna be interesting. Something I'm gonna learn something here I didn't know before. Gilead was the son of Manasseh, huh? Yeah, interesting. That's something I never knew before. Okay. So Yeziel. All right. So let's see here. Let's get a new reader here. Brother Dennis, are you able to read chapter 17 for us?
I believe so.
Okay.
And the lot for the tribe of Manasseh, for he was the firstborn of Joseph, was for Mechar, the firstborn of Manasseh, fathered Gilead, because he was a man of battle. Therefore he had Gilead and Bashan. And for the rest of the children of Manasseh, for their clans, there was for the children of Abizar, and for the children of Hewick, and for the children of Esrael, and for the children of Shechem, and for the children of Hepher, and for the children of Shemida. These were the male children of Manasseh, son of Joseph, according to their clans. But Zelophehad, son of Hepher, son of Gilead, son of Mechar, son of Manasseh, had no sons, but only daughters. And these were the names of his daughters: Mahlah, Noah, Hoglah, Milcah, and Tirzah. And they came near before Eleazar the priest, before Yahusha, son of Nun, and before the rulers, saying, Yahweh commanded Moshe to give us an inheritance among the brothers. So he gave them an inheritance among their father's brothers, according to the command of Yahuwah. And 10 portions fell to Manasseh, besides the land of Gilead and Bashan, which were beyond the Jordan, because the daughters of Manasseh received an inheritance among his sons. His sons had the land of Gilead. And the border of Manasseh was from Asher to Michmezeth, which faces Shechem, and the border went up to the right of the inhabitants of En Tepuah. The land of Tepuah belonged to Manasseh, but Tepuah on the border of Manasseh belonged to the children of Ephraim. And the border went down to the Wadi, Tanah, southward to the Wadi. These cities of Ephraim were in the midst of the cities of Manasseh, but the border of Manasseh was north of the Wadi, and it ended at the sea. Southward it was Ephraim's, and northward it was Manasseh's, and the sea was its border. And they reached to Asher on the north and to Issachar on the east. And in Issachar and in Asher, Manasseh had Beth Shean and its towns, and Yibleam and its towns, and the inhabitants of Dor and its towns, and the inhabitants of Endor and its towns, and the inhabitants of Taanach and its towns, and the inhabitants of Megiddo and its towns, 3 of the heights. But the children of Manasseh were unable to drive out the inhabitants of those cities, for the Canaanites desired to dwell in that land.
Hmm.
And it came to be, when the children of Yisrael grew strong, that they put the Canaanites to compulsory labor, but did not utterly drive them out. And the children of Joseph spoke to Yahusha, saying, Why have you given us but one lot and one portion to inhabit, seeing we are a great people whom Yahweh has baraked until now? And Yahusha said to them, You are a great people. Go up to the forest and clear a place for yourself there in the land of the Perizzites and the Rephaites, since the hill country of Ephraim is too narrow for you. And the children of Joseph said, The hill country is not enough for us, and all the Canaanites who dwell in the land of the valley have chariots of iron, both those who are of Beth Shean and its towns, and those who are the valley of Yisrael. And Yahusha spoke to the house of Joseph, to Ephraim, and to Manasseh, saying, You are a great people, and have great power, and you are not to have one lot, for the hill country shall be yours. For though it is a forest, you shall cut it down, and its furthest limit shall be yours. For you are to drive out the Canaanites, though they have iron chariots and are strong.
Yeah. Is the old saying is sometimes our eyes are bigger than our stomach. They were getting all puffed up like, oh yeah, we're a great people and we need more land. He's like, go ahead. Go down and defeat the Canaanites, go ahead.
Yeah.
And that's when they had a change of heart there. They got afraid a little bit. And he's like, and the LXX kind of shows that actually Masha had faith in them. He more than the Masoretic does, because it says, for he has chosen Calvary, referring to the Canaanites. It says, yet you are stronger than he. So Masha is actually saying, come on, man, you're strong enough. Come on, go down there. You got all big before. Come on. Why are you getting afraid now? That's like kind of what's going on there. And, yeah. Which weren't, I forget, is Ephraim and Manasseh, Mom, one of the tribes that didn't want to go to war with their other tribes?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, they seem to have a problem with fear. They're
we'll stay over here on this side of the Jordan. You go ahead.
Yeah, so
I forget where that is, where I read that recently.
It's
is it in Judges? Or?
It might be in Judges. The recount of it might be in Judges.
Yeah.
But I think the original account was like somewhere in Deuteronomy or Numbers, where it's actually happening, where they didn't want to cross the Jordan to help their brothers in war and all that. Yeah. What I found interesting too. Oh, go ahead, brother. I'm sorry.
It's interesting too that the name Manasseh means my people forget.
Oh, is that right? Wow.
Yeah. There was a couple of interesting places that it talked about in this chapter. Verse 11 talks about Megiddo, which is the Megiddo is the Hebrew word for where we get the word Armageddon. So
Megiddo?
Yeah.
Sound like Pokemon.
All right, whatever. Megiddo, whatever, however you want to pronounce it. Megiddo. All right. Okay. The Valley of Megiddo. Okay. That place though is Yeah, so like you can go back to, I forget whether it was like what, the half a tribe of Manasseh that stayed back on the side of the Jordan. I think it was like some of Ephraim and the half tribe of Manasseh that
Yeah.
did that.
I think you're right, yeah.
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 Yeah, they
Maybe
were basically saying, well, we're gonna stay here with our wives and children. They kind of rationalized like, okay, we'll go afterward, but we want to get settled with our herds first. And they were kind of like rationalizing with Masha. Masha was like, listen, you're not gonna play me for a fool. I know what happened back in Numbers 13. You're not about to do this again. So he's like, you guys, you can settle down there on the other side of the Jordan, but once you get settled, you're going to war with your brothers. Masha wasn't having it. So yeah, that's one of the lessons that yeah, the Megiddo though is Hebrew for Armageddon. That's where we get the word
right.
Armageddon.
Okay.
So there's places even in prophecy that talks about there was I forget, in one of the Tanakh prophets they mention that valley of Megiddo and two kings going to war. I forget exactly where it is though. It's somewhere in one of the prophets before Revelations. It's but the valley.
Ezekiel talks about
Yeah,
that
let me
stuff.
look up that phrase, the Valley of Megiddo. Hold on a second. I know there's importance in it in the prophets. Let me see here. Where's my browser here? I could have swore I had Opera browser. Okay. Let me just see here. I'll just for the heck of it. Hold on. Sometimes when I'm all right. Come on. Where is it? Where is it? Just for the sake of this, I'll use Chrome. All right, so Valley of Megiddo. Let's see here. Here we go. Judges. There's a passage in Judges about this place. A couple of times in Judges. First Kings. Here's the one. First Kings chapter 9, 15, and 19. Now, this is the account of the forced labor. That's kind of interesting that the forced labor is mentioned here. What we were talking about before. The forced labor which King Solomon levied to build the house of Yahuwah. Interesting. His own house, the Milo, the wall of Jerusalem, Hazor, Megiddo, and Gezer, for Pharaoh, king of Egypt, had gone up and captured Gezer and burned it with fire and killed the Canaanites who lived in the city and had given it as a dowry to his daughter, Solomon's wife. So Solomon rebuilt Gezer and the lower Beth Horon. So I wonder if Joshua 16 is retelling the same account as First Kings 9, talking about Pharaoh and his daughter. So it's kind of interesting. But yeah, Megiddo is mentioned there in First Kings 9. So that's kind of interesting. So Megiddo seems to be a very important place. Here we go. Pharaoh Necho king of Egypt, 2 Kings 23, 29 to 30. In his days, Pharaoh Necho, king of Egypt, went up to the king of Assyria. So this is the account I'm thinking of. So you have Necho versus, I guess, Sennacherib or whoever would have been king of Assyria at that point. To the river Euphrates, and King Josiah went to meet him. And when Pharaoh Necho saw him, he killed him at Megiddo. His servants drove. Why did it go back up? Stupid thing. So it says here, his servants drove his body in a chariot from Megiddo and brought him to Jerusalem and buried him in his own tomb. The people of that land took Yahuaz, the son of Josiah, and anointed him and made him king in place of his father. So Josiah, Yahuaz, the son of Josiah, took his father's place as king. So what's interesting, though, is that the Valley of Megiddo is mentioned a lot in even prior to the Battle of Armageddon and all that. So that's why I wanted to bring that up, because it's a pretty important place. What I noticed too is that I think the reason the Bretons doesn't have the word Asher there is because somehow there's certain manuscripts, families of the Septuagint, that seem to be altered. Because if I go to the little footnote here, let's see, go back to verse 10 here of chapter 17. It says here on the footnote, it says, the Alexandrian manuscript has Asher. So what happened probably is the Codex Vaticanus, whenever that was made, the Vatican started altering words there. But the original Alexandrian manuscript says Asher, according to the translator here. So it's supposed to say Asher, just like the Masoretic does. So anyway, but that's pretty much okay. Close app. That's pretty much the rest of today's study here. Don't really have much to expound on. I mean, it's self-explanatory.
Yeah.
You have the Canaanite cities being talked about here. They Ephraim and Manasseh, this is pretty much talking about their inheritance here and them wanting more inheritance, but then they don't want to fight for it. But anyway, so hopefully you guys enjoyed this study. Stay tuned. Yahuwah willing, we'll be back next Shabbat, going further into the book of Yahusha. Like I said, I promised you guys, I am going to link the study that we did way back when, differences in the book of Yahusha. So hopefully you guys will enjoy that as well. So anyway, to all of our brothers and sisters out there, have a great rest of your Shabbat, and Shabbat Shalom. See you guys next time. All right.